Hello everyone, I'm going to be going over the new Soviet Tier 6 Premium Medium Tank. It's called the Loza's M4-A2 Sherman. Basically, this is a Soviet Easy 8 more or less, and it comes with a special commander, not a full crew. However, it comes with Dmitry Loza, and he comes with a Sixth Sense perk, kind of like the special like Brothers in Arms perks and stuff, where they don't count towards your experience on a crew skill. It just has Sixth Sense to begin with, and it doesn't count towards the actual experience for that first skill. So that is something special that comes with this tank, since Dmitry Loza comes with it. The rest of the crew, though, is a normal crew. They don't gain anything over a different crew member. Now, looking at the first, before I hop into comparison, I'm going to compare against the other M4 Shermans, and also compare it against a couple Russian mediums as well, since, it is a Russian premium medium. Is it worth picking up over like a T-3485M or a Rudy? Who knows? But looking at the crew setup here, commander, gunner, driver, radio operator, and loader does share, the same setup with most Russian mediums at mid tiers, like the T-3485, T-3485M. The Rudy does lose one since it has that dog crew member, so that's the only kind of caveat, that this is a better crew trainer compared to, say, like a Rudy. Now, just looking at the tank, it's pretty much identical to an Easy 8 found in an American tech tree, except for it has a couple like special emblems and things written on it, since this was Dmitry Loza's Sherman that they're basing this off of. So hopping into the comparison, is this tank really worth buying? Most people you'll see will tell you no. I completely agree with that. Unless you really like M4s, like I personally do like M4 Shermans. I have a lot of them in my garage, but is it really worth buying one, especially given it is a Soviet tank, so you're only able to use Russian crew members in it, which it is a crew trainer if people want an M4 to train Russian crews in. But getting into the stats, you'll see here pretty much all the M4s here. Now the E2, I do have the top turret and the 76mm on it. Pretty much they're identical across the board. Damage per shot 115 is pretty low, honestly, for tier 6. Penetration 128 is also really low. Premium shell pops up to, I believe, like 177mm. So right off the get-go, like every other M4 at tier 6, you're lacking not only damage per shot, but also penetration on your standard round. And the premium round, it's doable to fight against higher tiers, but you're still at a pretty huge disadvantage. Now comparing it here to rate of fire, it's better than the Thunderbolt, but again, identical compared to the other Shermans, the E2, the Fury, the M4-A3, E8. Turret traverse, a little bit lower than the E2 and the E8, but identical to the Fury and the Thunderbolt. Gun depression, -10 degrees, is great. However, it is 2 degrees lower than the tech tree M4-A3 E8. Something to keep in mind, because that extra 2 degrees of gun depression does make the E8 a lot better, on hills, to where with 10 degrees, given the height of the Loza's M4, you will be exposing part of your hull, which, if higher tiers are shooting at you, makes you a pretty easy and big target. Aiming time 2.21, which is more than the Thunderbolt, but in line with the other M4s, and a little bit better than the Russian mediums, which I'll get to in a second here. Accuracy 0.38 honestly is not that great, considering your average damage per shot, and penetration is pretty poor. A lot of the M4s, honestly, sitting around tier 6, are kind of power creeped and left behind. This tank is no exception, since it's basically a reskin of the M4-A3 E8. And then finally, the DPM here. It does have pretty good DPM. It's a little bit higher than the T-3485M, but really what you're gaining here, while it does have good DPM, Your accuracy is not the best. You are able to put a vertical stabilizer on it, like you can to the Fury, the M4 Thunderbolt. That's kind of like a special little perk for these tanks, to where they do get access to a vertical stabilizer. Now basically what that means is you probably won't be equipping something like ventilation. You'll probably run like optics, V-stabilizer, and a rammer, compared to say like a Rudy and T-34-85M that will probably put either like a gun laying drive or probably vents to improve the reload a little bit. So your DPM is almost identical to the T-34-85M. It is much higher than the Rudy, but both of these tanks, with the ventilation, they'll get a little bit more DPM out of the tank. However, the on-the-move accuracy on the Loza's M4-A2 will be better, considering, the stats here, 0.35 on the move. The accuracy of the Rudy T-34-85M isn't the best, especially without that V-stabilizer. But the benefits of the other two Russian crew trainers, like the Rudy, you do lose that one crew location, basically because of the dog being on there. However, the T-34-85M, in itself, does more damage per shot, quite a bit, 65, has more penetration, and the DPM on the T-34-85M, virtually identical, where the Rudy loses a little bit. Overall accuracy is better, but it does lack gun depression, both the Rudy and the T-34-85M, compared to the Loza's M4. Moving along now, HP, nothing really to see here. A little bit less than the E2, however, in line with the rest of the Shermans, and higher than the Russian counterparts. Hull armor, you're not really going to expect much here. It's not an M4-A3 E2, which, even that armor, it's alright in today's game, but, with the usage of premium rounds, the E2's armor isn't, exactly as good as it once was. Basically, you're going to be penetrated by pretty much everything you come across here, except for some tier 4s and tier 5s, especially if you're hull down. But even hold down, your turret armor, really you only have the mantlet, where there's some spots you can deflect some tier 6 and then under rounds, especially tier 4 and 5. But for the most part, the turret isn't as good as the M4-A3 E2 or like the Thunderbolts. However, compared to Russian peers, the Rudy and itself probably are about the same as far as protection goes against, tier 4 and 5s. You'll be a little bit protected, but anything 6 up, you're just going to be shredded. T-34-85M has a little bit better protection on the hull, given a little bit thicker and angled armor. And the turret, it's comparable, but a little bit better than the Loza's M4. Now, the main thing you're going to find here in this tank, which is a little bit confusing, and why they did this, is it does have a very high top speed compared to the other Shermans. It has a 51.4 km/h top speed on the Loza's M4-A2, compared to 35 on the E2, 41 on the Fury, 48 on the E8, and 42 on the Thunderbolt. However, you'll notice it has literally the worst specific power, given it only has a 410 horsepower engine. So it's literally the one of the slower medium tanks at tier 6, given that weak engine. Doesn't matter that it has a top speed, unless you're going down a hill, you're not going to reach that. It's going to be very difficult for you to actually maneuver around in this thing. While it's not, say, like slow as a heavy tank, it is noticeably slower than pretty much every other medium at tier 6. Going down to concealment, nothing too special here. It's not as good as, say, the Russian concealment. It's not as good as the E2 or the E8s, but really it's kind of splitting hairs, since really these values, it's not like they're light tanks, so most of the time you're going to be firing a lot in this thing, and the concealment's not going to matter. View range at 370 is pretty good for its tier, for a tier 6 medium, but in general, if you start seeing tier 7s and 8s, 370 isn't that great stacked up against a lot of those. So really it's just, kind of a moot point, to where it is a little bit better than the Russians, but you're going to be outspotted in a majority of your matches. Now, hopping in to look at this again, you know, the turret again, the mantlet, you know, it does take up a pretty decent chunk of the turret front. However, you can get pinned towards the center of it, and the edges are tougher. You know, more or less, the lack of the 12 degrees of gun depression compared to the E8, and this only has 10, it is pretty damning for this tank because, you know, not only do you basically buying a premium tank to where, you know, they're not, in my opinion, supposed to be better than tech tree tanks, but this one is basically flat out worse than the E8. You know, you're basically buying a reskinned E8 with a weaker engine and also less gun depression. So is there really a point to pick this up? Unless you really like M4 tanks, or you don't have a Rudy or a T-34-85M, you know, there's no real point, honestly, to pick this up unless you really like M4 Shermans, or if you like Dimitri Loza, to where, you know, while this isn't exactly a completely worse tank of its class at tier 6 for a medium, it's extremely close to it. The only thing that stops me from saying that is stock tier 6 mediums are worse than the Loza's M4-A2. Whereas, you know, since it's a premium and it has its elite configuration because you can't change it, it is better than stock tier 6 mediums. However, you're going to be hard pressed to find a worse elite tier 6 medium than the Loza's M4-A2, unless they go around and buff all the other M4 Shermans found at tier 6, because most of them are kind of power creeped. The Thunderbolt with its added armor does stand up a little bit better in the E2, but usually the 115 damage per shot and only 128 millimeters of penetration, 177 with your premium round, you know, you are definitely struggling to fight against many tier 6 to tier 8 tanks. You still can beat up on lower tiers, but buying a tank, you know, with real money, just for that, you know, just for that situation, you're better off just getting an M4-A3 E8 and the standard tech tree and going from there. If you want the Loza's M4, you'd be better off with the added gun depression and the stronger engine. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this. You know, hopefully this helped you out with kind of deciding on this tank. My personal recommendation is, if you need a Russian medium crew trainer, you don't want one of the higher tier ones, you know, at tier 8, you're better off just picking up a T-34-85M. Even a Rudy, even given that you do lose one crew slot, you're better off with one of those for a Russian crew trainer. If you really want to play this tank, just get yourself an M4-A3 E8. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a very nice day, and hopefully I'll see you around on another video sometime soon. See ya.